I was searching on Amazon for a simple visual timer when I came across this little number. Initially, I was intrigued by all the bells and whistles, but upon further inspection, it seemed to have all the makings of a great productivity tool. It had a visual timer, a to-do list, a 12-hour clock, and some clicky buttons. So naturally, I ordered it. As someone who struggles with procrastination, distractions, and staying on task, I was curious to see if this tool would make me more productive. Plus, I know a few of you have mentioned in the comments that you struggle with ADHD, and I thought it might be cool to try a product that was designed specifically with ADHD in mind. It came with everything I needed to get started, and it seemed pretty simple to use. To begin, you turn the dial to the right to start the timer, and you'll know it's been started because the light is going to turn green. It has 2 audio settings, silent or an alarm, which sounds like this. The task sheet is removable and the buttons sound like this. Over the course of a week, I decided to use this new tool in hopes to see an increase in productivity. And here was my method. I would start by writing my to-do list as I usually do. I would then go through that list and pick the project that I felt most motivated to start with. Keep in mind that you want these to be broad. Next, I'm transferring the project to the timer, and I'm making sure that within the project I'm putting specific, actionable to-dos. Then I would simply set the timer and work until the alarm went off or until the task was complete. At this point, I would take a break, reset my to-do list, and repeat. In order to measure if I had been productive or not, I would compare task migration from this week to a previous week, how many tasks I'm moving from day to day. I would look at my ability to stay on task and whether or not I could sit through an entire period of work, and I would also look at how motivated I felt to continue. Now, without further ado, let's get started. I wanted to implement the timer in as many ways as I could see fit. So on the first day, I started by using it for a morning routine. I did a quick meditation along with some other morning activities, and one of the first things I noticed is, whoa, that alarm is quite loud, especially in the morning and especially if you're doing a calming task like meditation. Aside from that, I did get everything done in the morning and it seemed to work okay. On every single one of the days, I would use the timer to block out work periods and complete tasks in the way I had described at the beginning of the video. On this particular day, I had a little bit of a learning curve when I completed my tasks earlier than the timer, and I kind of had to figure out how to get the timer to beep. I finished a little bit early, so I don't know how to stop it from counting down. I think maybe I can just adjust it here and then let it ring. We'll see. I'm gonna have a lunch now and then I'll come back for work period 2 and I'm gonna see what I want to get up to. During these work periods, I was already seeing an improvement in the number of tasks that I was getting done and how long I was able to stay on task. Additionally, when the alarm sounded, it was a good reminder to take a break and get a snack. Almost 1:30 right now, so I'm going to take a quick break and then come back to finish up the rest of my to-do list. Instead of working to fatigue, having those scheduled breaks made sure that I gave myself a little rest, and I found that it helped my motivation when I came back. I was also able to get done some commonplacing, which I had been putting off for a while. On most of the days, I was also using my timer for music to make sure I was spending at least 1 hour practicing guitar and doing some warm-ups for my singing. And I think this could be really good for those of you who play an instrument and are trying to work on that self-discipline muscle to make sure that you're getting your practice in. On day 4, I was putting on press-ons and I used the timer to make sure that the glue had dried, and that was kind of a little fun and random application, not necessarily productive, but still fun. On day 5, I tackled some laundry and it was one of my favorite days for this device. I really saw a huge improvement in my productivity, in my motivation, and in my ability to stay focused. Laundry is one of those tasks for me that really makes me feel fatigued, but I was able to complete all of my laundry and set up the guest bedroom. I also did some vacuuming, mopping, and general cleaning, and I'm not too sure how I feel about this particular use. I found that I was moving the timer from place to place quite a bit just so that I could see it or so that it wasn't in the way while I was cleaning surfaces. Day 7 was another highly productive day, and in this video I'm actually working on one of my upcoming YouTube videos where I compare the best softcover notebooks. Again, I was able to collect all the technical specs on these notebooks and stay on task. I had everything I needed and I just felt like I was really productive. Alright, it's the end of the 7 days and I wanted to come in to give my final thoughts, starting with the pros and the cons for the physical device. So to start with the pros, it has quite a good battery life. It already came with a little bit of charge out of the box. I gave it another charge just to re-up, and it has lasted the entire duration of the experiment and onwards. I'm not sure how long the battery life will last, but I would consider this to be a good battery life. Second, I would also say this device is very user-friendly because it doesn't have to pair to any app and it's not digitally linked to any app. It's very easy to set up. There are only a few buttons and the manual was very easy to read. The marker that it comes with is also very good. I was anticipating it being trash, which is why I preemptively bought some others, but I actually really like this because of the fine tip, and it also is quite pigmented. And finally, it feels decent quality. Every part works as expected. It looks like the photos, and even this task sheet is reinforced, so I don't think it's going to break in any way. Moving on to some of the drawbacks, you only have two options with the sound, one of them being blaringly loud and then the other one being dead silent. And I can see this kind of posing a problem because the loud is very loud and it can disrupt you if you're in a quiet period of focus, like it happened when I was meditating. But if you have it on the silent mode, you might not even notice that the timer's up unless you're actively looking at the clock, so that can be distracting as well. I would suggest they incorporate some kind of vibration setting. The next thing is that this pen comes with a magnet, but no part of this machine is magnetic, so that was kind of a random choice. There is no way to attach the marker to the machine, and I'm kind of two minds about this. I think maybe adding a clip would make it look junky. However, this way, if they're separate, you do have to bring two things with you into every room that you move, and that might just be annoying, especially if you have other things in your hands. I also wish this task sheet was slightly larger horizontally because this is a pretty small space and not everybody writes very small, so I found myself writing across multiple lines, and then when it came to crossing them off, I got a little bit confused about which task was correlating to which line. Of course, if you made this longer horizontally, the actual machine might have to be larger, but I would rather sacrifice perhaps a smaller clock with a little bit larger task sheet. And finally, if you do decide to turn off the clock to save the battery, which I did at the very beginning just to see what that would do, if you turn it back on, it resets the time. So every time you do that, you're going to have to reset the timer, which can be a little bit annoying. Now I'm going to move on to the actual results of the experiment and share where I think this device really shined and where I feel like it was not a good fit for me and might not be a good fit for some others. To start, I really think this device did well with those time blocking work periods. I had much better time awareness with the visual countdown. I could see exactly how long I had spent on the project and how long I had left. Because I could see the visual countdown, it also imposed a greater sense of urgency, which kept me focused. Once I had turned this orange dial, I really didn't want to disrupt it, so it kept me on task. I also think that the visual timer helped make those bigger projects feel more manageable. Just having the end in sight and knowing when you'd be getting a break made things feel much more manageable and helped me commit to the work period. I also see this being very helpful for those of you who like to use the Pomodoro technique. I think it would be cool to implement that. Another area where I think this device really shines are for those more mundane or sticky tasks that you really don't like doing. So for me, that would be laundry. Laundry to me feels like the myth of Sisyphus. I don't know if you've seen that meme, but I find this device almost helped me gamify it. It became a challenge to see how quickly I could complete my laundry in the given set of time, and it gave me that motivation to follow through. And when I was done, the buttons worked as a really good reward. They make the completion of a task much more gratifying than just crossing it off of a to-do list because there's a good amount of resistance when you push, and it's just satisfying. For those of you with ADHD, I feel like this device could encourage you to take breaks. I know sometimes with ADHD you get hyper fixated on one task, which leads you to neglect some other tasks that may be just as important. With this machine, when the timer's up, you know it's time to take a break and to divert your attention towards a different task. A couple other random places I think this device may shine are for parents. You could help your kids learn some time management skills with their homework or their chores. For students, this would be a great tool to use for studying and when to take breaks, and even for shared household tasks. I can see this being used to even bake cookies. You can write the recipe here, set the timer, or even doing a full workout if you wanted to put, workout at the top and then actually your set. And if you wanted to even use it as a grocery list for the family to see. Although it shines in lots of areas, there are also some drawbacks, so let's get into those. To start, this device is not portable. You can't really throw it in your bag unless you've got a lot of room and you're going somewhere that you can set it down. For me, I found this to be true with my morning routine. I did attempt to implement it into that. However, my morning routine spreads across different days, and it might for a lot of you too. And I found that carrying this and whatever else I had was just a lot to carry. And let's say part of your morning routine, like mine, is going to the gym. You're gonna bring this to the gym? I don't know, but I wouldn't. It's not portable. Just popping in, if you're looking for something more portable, I did look around and they sell both the timer and the to-do list separately. Additionally, as much as this can gamify your life, on the flip side, it could also cause you some anxiety or rushing. When I saw the timer was inching closer to the end and I was close to finishing a task, like I only had one chapter left in my book or I was just finishing up my notes, I would speed up so I could get it done on time. Obviously, this is not good because you don't want to rush any of your tasks. You want to make sure that they're done thoughtfully and well. This also just made my heart race sometimes, and that gave me anxiety too. Third, not everybody enjoys or likes time blocking. It can feel very rigid, especially if you're working on a creative pursuit. As you saw, I used this machine to make sure that I was spending at least an hour on my singing and my guitar. But if you're an artist, you know that sometimes you don't want that rigidity. When you're in a creative flow state, having an alarm or a timer can limit your immersion into that creative activity. It can also feel like you have to produce something within a given time frame, which is really not what you want to do when you're doing something creative or artistic. Finally, if you want this to work for you, you do have to make it a habit, and some people might find that annoying. If you forget to set the timer or you forget to bring it with you, you might not even enjoy using this at all. Overall, I think this device is great, and yes, it did make me more productive by those parameters I set. I had less migrated tasks across days, I was able to sit down for the entire duration of the work period, and I felt more motivated to complete the tasks. I think there are lots of good applications, and if nothing else, you can use it as an egg timer or a clock. I really don't see any downsides, especially considering the price compared to some other productivity or time management items. I think it's worth a go. Anyway guys, that is it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and giving it a huge thumbs up. You know that your support on this channel just helps me do more fun things like this. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Stay cozy and bye-bye.